Fighter jet, a new report showing the plane will now cost taxpayers more than $1.7 trillion.
The review of the F-35 acquisition project continues.
We cut approximately $600 million off the F-35 fighter, and that only amounts to 90 planes.
In March 2023, a quiet email sent shockwaves through one of America's most powerful defense companies. Inside Lockheed Martin, the world's largest weapons manufacturer, the international sales director submitted his resignation. There was no public scandal, no technical failure, no accident in the sky. The reason was far more dangerous. A small European country had just rejected the F-35. The Czech Republic chose Sweden's Gripen instead. A $5.6 billion deal vanished overnight. What looked like a single loss was, in reality, the beginning of a pattern no one in Washington wanted to admit. This was not the first rejection, and it would not be the last. Over the past decade, 7 nations, Brazil, Thailand, Hungary, Switzerland, the Czech Republic, Colombia, and Argentina, were all offered the F-35, the most advanced fighter jet ever built. Every one of them said no. Instead, they chose the same alternative, Saab's Gripen. Different continents, different politics, different security needs, yet all arrived at the same conclusion. On paper, the F-35 is unmatched. It dominates the skies with stealth technology, sensor fusion, and networked warfare capabilities no competitor can fully replicate. But the F-35 is not just an aircraft. It is a system, one that comes with long-term financial, technical, and political obligations. And that is where the problem begins. The F-35 is the largest defense program in human history. Its total development and lifecycle cost is estimated at over $1.7 trillion. To make the program economically viable, Lockheed Martin must sell thousands of aircraft over decades. The math is unforgiving. Every lost export order increases the cost for everyone else. When a country walks away, production volume drops, fixed costs remain, and unit prices creep upward. This is how a defense program enters what economists call a death spiral. Gripen wins not because it is more advanced, but because it is more realistic. An S-35A costs around $110 million per aircraft. A Gripen E comes in closer to $85 million. That difference seems manageable until life cycle costs are included. Over 40 years, maintenance, fuel, software updates, spare parts, and training push the F-35's true cost to nearly 7 times its purchase price. For mid-sized air forces, that burden becomes unsustainable. Then there's control. Every F-35 is tied to American-controlled logistics and software systems. Mission data, maintenance logs, and operational status are continuously shared with servers in the United States. Without system authorization, the jet cannot operate fully. For some nations, this level of dependence is acceptable. For others, it is a red line. Gripen offers something rare in modern defense deals: technological sovereignty. Buyers receive access to source code, local maintenance rights, and the ability to modify systems without foreign approval. Brazil openly stated this as its primary reason for choosing Gripen. They didn't want to rent power, they wanted to own it. By the time the Czech Republic signed its Gripen deal, Lockheed Martin had already lost more than $4.2 billion in initial contracts. But the real loss was far greater. Over decades of support and services, the missed revenue approaches $30 billion. And now a far larger decision looms, one that could change everything. Canada is watching, and so is the world.
Canada is not just another customer in the global fighter jet market. It is a founding NATO member, America's closest military partner, and one of the original development partners of the F-35 program. For years, Ottawa was assumed to be locked in. An order for 88 F-35s, valued at nearly $19 billion, was expected to reinforce the program's economic backbone. But beneath the surface, Canada faces a problem that no lobbying campaign can erase: geography. Canada controls the longest Arctic coastline on Earth, over 25,000 kilometers of frozen territory. Winter temperatures routinely plunge below -40 degrees Celsius. Runways are short, remote, and often covered in ice. Infrastructure is sparse. This environment is unforgiving, and fighter jets must adapt to it, not the other way around. The F-35 was designed for high-intensity, networked warfare from modern air bases. It relies on climate-controlled hangars, long runways, and sensitive stealth coatings that degrade in extreme cold. Maintenance procedures are complex, time-consuming, and dependent on specialized equipment. In the Arctic, those requirements become liabilities. Gripen was built with a different philosophy. The aircraft was tested in Kiruna, Sweden, where temperatures reach -52 degrees Celsius. It can take off from 800-meter runways, including highways and ice-covered strips. Maintenance crews can service it outdoors using basic tools. Turnaround time between missions is measured in minutes, not hours. This is not lower technology, it is optimized technology. An internal Canadian defense assessment in 2023 reportedly raised concerns that the F-35 may struggle to meet long-term Arctic operational needs. While such reports rarely shape headlines, they matter deeply behind closed doors. Military planners understand that air superiority means nothing if aircraft cannot reliably operate where they are needed most. But the final decision does not rest solely with the Air Force. It sits in Ottawa, where defense, economics, and politics collide. Choosing the F-35 strengthens alliance alignment with Washington. Choosing Gripen sends a very different signal, one about autonomy, flexibility, and national control. If Canada walks away from the F-35, the impact will be immediate and global. Poland, which has signed but not fully finalized its F-35 order, would reconsider. The Philippines, currently weighing F-35 versus Gripen for modernization, would hesitate. Indonesia, Romania, Bulgaria, and Greece are all evaluating future fighter purchases. Combined, these potential deals represent $50 to $70 billion over the next decade. Defense programs survive on momentum. Lose enough confidence and production lines shrink. Shrinking production raises unit costs. Rising costs scare away new buyers. This feedback loop has no internal fix. Only massive government intervention or a strategic reset can stop it. The U.S. Department of Defense understands this risk. In recent years, it increased domestic F-35 orders to offset declining export momentum. But even Pentagon budgets have limits. They cannot absorb infinite cost overruns forever. Lockheed Martin now faces a paradox of its own creation. The F-35 is the most advanced fighter ever built, but that very sophistication has made it inaccessible to many nations seeking independence rather than dependence. Gripen, once dismissed as inferior, has become the symbol of a new defense philosophy: good enough capability with full sovereignty. Canada's decision will not be about which jet is better on paper. It will be about what kind of power nations want in the 21st century: borrowed power or owned power. The eighth domino is standing. It hasn't fallen yet, but it is moving. As Canada weighs its decision, pressure builds quietly but relentlessly. Washington does not issue threats. It never has to. Influence works differently at this level. Trade, intelligence sharing, joint exercises, and diplomatic goodwill all move in subtle alignment. Choosing the F-35 keeps Canada perfectly synchronized with the American-led defense ecosystem. Choosing Gripen introduces friction, manageable friction, but friction nonetheless. For decades, military power was sold as hardware, jets, tanks, missiles. Today, it is sold as access to software updates, access to encrypted networks, access to shared battle data. The F-35 represents the peak of this model. It is not just a fighter jet, it is a permission-based platform. That model works well for superpowers and tightly integrated alliances. It works far less well for mid-sized nations that want flexibility in a multipolar world. This is why the 7 previous Gripen buyers natter. None of them rejected the F-35 because it was weak. They rejected it because it came with strings that never expire. 40 years of dependency is not a purchase, it is a commitment. And for many governments, that commitment became harder to justify as global politics grew less predictable. Lockheed Martin tried to counter this shift. They promised local jobs, assembly lines, and industrial partnerships. Governments saw through it. Those factories could be closed with a single corporate decision thousands of miles away. They were not sovereignty, they were leverage. When political pressure increased, resistance hardened. When cost estimates were revised downward on paper, trust eroded further as early F-35 operators reported real-world costs far above projections. The result is a slow but visible change in behavior. Nations are no longer asking, what is the best jet? They are asking, what is the best jet we can truly control? This does not mean the F-35 is failing technologically. It remains unmatched in stealth warfare and sensor dominance. But excellence at the top end does not guarantee universal appeal. The global defense market is fragmenting. One size no longer fits all. If Canada ultimately stays with the F-35, the program survives, perhaps even stabilizes. The domino effect pauses. Export confidence returns, at least temporarily. But if Canada walks away, the message will be unmistakable. If even America's closest partner chooses autonomy over alignment, others will follow, not out of rebellion, but out of calculation. In that scenario, Lockheed Martin does not collapse overnight, but the economics tighten. Production rates fall. Unit costs rise. Governments hesitate. The death spiral becomes harder to ignore. The F-35 would still fly, but its role would narrow, confined increasingly to nations willing to trade sovereignty for integration. Gripen's rise does not signal the end of American air power. It signals the end of unquestioned dominance in defense exports. The world is changing. Power is being redefined, not by who builds the most advanced machine, but who allows others to truly own it. This was never just a story about fighter jets. It is a story about control in an age of dependence, about alliances in a world drifting toward strategic independence, and about a future where nations may choose good enough technology if it means staying free. 7 dominoes have already fallen. The 8th is still standing. The question is no longer which jet will win, but which model of power will survive.